So yeah, there's definitely a lot of expectancy effects, and that's not surprising in any way. But there's also, chemistry is really only one factor. Chemistry is an important factor in determining effects. Context and expectations are another important factor. But the other one that's big, and arguably even the biggest one, is dose. So, if you take two different cannabis products that are high in THC and they have a different terpene profile, say, and let's just assume, for the sake of argument, they will cause different effects. Well, if they cause different effects, that means that they will cause different effects for you at the same dose. But if you simply smoke enough of anything with THC, that changes the effects, right? A low dose and a high dose of something have different effects, even if it's the same thing that you're smoking each time. So, to put it in simple terms, if you smoke enough of anything, you're probably going to go to sleep. So then imagine someone, going into a dispensary. They're like, okay, I'm looking for cannabis to help me sleep. I want to get sleepy. They go in, the bartender says, use this one. It's an indica. It will make you sleepy. Well, whether or not it is that or is something else, if you just go home and you smoke a little bit and it doesn't make you sleepy, and then you just keep smoking more, you'll probably get sleepy at some point. So you can sort of tune, you can, in some sense, get many different effects out of the same thing by just modulating the dose. And, so that's just another complicating factor here. So, it's actually not difficult for someone to be like, oh yeah, that thing caused the effect I wanted, because they're expecting it to cause that effect. And, whether or not it's the best thing to cause that effect, you can probably get that effect to some extent at some dose for that strain. So there's all of these complicating factors here. And then all of this is riding on top of the fact that, these names are, there's really no stringency. So there's no, you can name a product anything you want. What's kind of remarkable about the results that we found is that there was any consistency at all to the strain names. The strain names aren't distributed randomly, and we can look at that directly in our data set and analyze it directly. So it means that people are like actually, with some reliability, naming these things, in a somewhat disciplined manner. So for example, let me give you some examples. A strain like Blue Dream is actually, what you describe as relatively consistent. So when you take, and we've got many, many Blue Dream samples, and again, when a sample is labeled Blue Dream in the data set, that doesn't mean it's bona fide Blue Dream. There's no genetic verification that cultivar is Blue Dream. The growers can name anything blue. They can put a tulip in a box and call it Blue Dream, and all we would see is the terpene profile for a tulip and the label Blue Dream. So there's nothing guaranteeing that these things really are Blue Dream. All we know is we've got a terpene profile and a cannabinoid profile, and someone said it was Blue Dream. Now, turns out that even though anyone can name these things anything, all of the many hundreds of Blue Dream samples we have, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but around 3/4 of the time, 75% or so of those Blue Dream samples are the same basic profile, even though they're coming from different growers in different states across the country. Blue Dream is most commonly associated with this high myrcene, high pinene chemotype. So it's THC dominant, and it tends to have myrcene and pinene as its predominant terpenes. And, remarkably, about 3/4 of the time, give or take, the Blue Dream samples have that basic profile. And it's not always the same, right? It's a little bit different, but that's that same basic profile as opposed to a distinct terpene profile. So the way you might think about this, if this is all like unfamiliar terminology to you, is if you think about something like wine, and you think about the different varietals of wine, right? You've got Merlots, and you've got Pinot Grigios, and you've got Chardonnays, and so on and so forth. But there isn't just one like type of Merlot, right? There's probably thousands of brands out there that have their own Merlot. And the Merlots aren't all identical to each other. They might even change for the same vineyard one year to the next. But we know what a Merlot is, and there's like a definition of what that means. And, they're all relatively similar to each other, right? They all taste and look and smell much more similar to the other Merlots than they do to the Pinot Grigio. even though all the Merlots are not identical to each other. And that's what you see, at least with some of the strain names, that majority of them will be in the same basic chemical neighborhood, right? So you can think of them as like, okay, this one's usually a Merlot. It might be a little bit different from one Merlot to the next, but it's the same basic chemical phenotype each time. And then of course some strain names are not like that. Some of them are truly random. But what's interesting is, a strain like Blue Dream has a relatively consistently distinct profile from something like Super Lemon Haze, say. So Super Lemon Haze is also THC dominant, but it actually tends to have high levels of this terpene called terpinolene, and it has relatively low levels of myrcene and pinene, which were high in Blue Dream. So there are strain names out there where a majority of the time those samples will have distinct terpene profiles from samples with another strain name, but it's never perfect. And the only way to know for sure is to have that lab testing data.